what's happening is it's like our houses are a mirror, but it's the unconsciousness. So it's like if you're not allowing yourself to receive, you're going to create these blocks in your house that are like, so this is like friction points of doors not working, doors not opening easily, you know, handles on doors cannot present a grip on life or your grip on your finances. Burnt out light bulbs represent being burnt out, you know? So it's like everything in your home has like a symbolism or an energy.
Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divine Alignment. I have a very special guest, Patricia, who is joining us today. We're going to be talking about a topic that I can't believe I actually have never mentioned on the podcast, and yet this has had an influence literally my entire life. But I have never felt qualified to talk about it. So we are going to be diving all into Feng Shui. So I'm sure Patricia will tell us all about it. But before we get into it, I would just love to hear who you are, what you do, your story, how you got into Feng Shui, and welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And as I said, just as we were coming on, that like Feng Shui is divine alignment. It's aligning the energy of your home with heaven and earth energy and tapping into the Tao. So essentially, it is exactly what the podcast is called. And so when we live in divine alignment and our home is in divine alignment, it supports us to be in divine alignment. And so it just feels so amazing to be here. My name is Patricia. I'm from the west of Ireland, currently sitting in a northern part of an island in Greece called Kefalonia. I just love it here. There's a lot of very beautiful, potent energy here with the elements. So we spend our summers here. I've been doing and into Feng Shui since I was about 15. And that was a while back. And I got my first books about it around then, when I think I saw it on a TV show or something. And I was going around my house trying to do things, move things, change things. I just got my own bedroom and I was like figuring it out and changing the direction. So it was very exciting for me. And the minute I like heard about it, I was like, there's something to it. And, you know, I just feel like, you know, our souls know what we're meant to do, but we have to take some time to catch up. So I got back into Feng Shui when I wanted to call in love. I had left my corporate job and moved to India. And basically, while I was in India, I had a massive spiritual awakening and was like able to read oracle cards for people. I was like channeling. It was just like opened me up to like total divine alignment. And essentially, you know, I quit everything. I changed my environment and it changed my life. And that's essentially what I help people do now, but they don't have to move to India. They can just change their home, change their environment. And I moved to the city, Dublin. And when I moved there, I was starting my holistic practice. And I found a new apartment and I said, I'm not leaving here until I'm moving in with my husband. And my flatmate at the time was my yoga teacher. And we were standing at the door and I literally said it to her. And she was just like, yeah, right. And I was like, I'm so serious. Like, you know, when you make that declaration to the universe, it's like, I am clear. And of course, when I like move in, I'm back at my parents and I find those books about Feng Shui. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. From that Feng Shui thing. So I Feng Shuied my bedroom for love. I did what I could around the apartment. And very soon afterwards, I met my now husband. And when I did move out, I moved in with him and he'd been into Feng Shui as well. So when I was like wandering around the house, I was like, that looks very Feng Shui. And he'd like 2 bedside tables and 2 lamps. And he had like a spare robe and spare things. And I was like, so obviously we're kismet. But when we decided to do it together in our own house, I just said, I really want to do this Feng Shui. And, you know, when the students are ready, the teacher appears and 2 Feng Shui masters arrived in Dublin within weeks of each other. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. And Ken, my now husband, said, I've always been interested. I want to do it too. So we headed off to do this starting, like kind of initial kind of starting of like kind of what we do now, what we do to learn what we do now with our clients. And we just totally naive, like, let's head down. We've no like attachment to what we're going to learn. We just want to do it for our own house. And we got there and literally we were just blown away. We were like, this feng shui, we've misunderstood. We thought it was about moving furniture. We thought it was about getting in the right position and the right color on your door and, you know, frogs and stuff, hanging lucky trinkets. And we're like, no, this is like acupuncture for your home. And it is so powerful. So like to the degree where the master looked at our house that we were living in and said to Ken, did you have financial difficulties last year? And like could not have known, like, you know, and Ken was like, huh? And he hadn't been paid for 6 months in the company that he'd been working for and nearly went bankrupt. And he goes, oh, probably all got sorted out by February, March time. And we're like, he got all the money in March. And we were like, what the hell? So we like full shivers down our bodies. We're like, how did he know? And like, no, looking at like numbers of a house. So that was the start for us. We just went back home. Our house was like very basic. Like it was just like these concrete floors. It was like an empty canvas. And we just did the feng shui, like literally put the elements in. And within 8 weeks, we had a 6-figure windfall. I got like featured, my business got featured and all over the media. Like it was just like some kind of our lives just like took off. And everybody then, like obviously in my business, when I was working with people in their holistic, like helping them like balance their energies with kinesiology and Reiki and lots of other modalities. And I started saying, well, what's going on with your house? You know, we're doing this work on the energy, your energy. Let's go check out your house because this stuff's happened in my house. And they were like, okay, come. I want to literally walk in, do the calculations and be like, oh, well, that's why your finances are like that. And this is why your health is like this. And this is like, it was so clear. So that just like all took off. So essentially like we did it for us. And then all of a sudden it was like, we're doing it for everyone else.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is amazing. This is amazing. And I love this is when I hear these things, to me, it makes so much sense. And I think a lot of people aren't actually looking at their home. And I love what you are sharing about, because I think when we go online and look, like research feng shui, that's exactly what comes up. It's like the frogs and, well, you have to do this to your front door. And it's like, and so we just think like, okay, like I just have to do that. Right. But I really want to dive into, because here's the thing, like we're energetic beings. We're energetic beings. And I know for myself, like I've experienced this too, where I'm needing like a shift in my health and I'm doing all of the things like to my body, but it's like, okay, but where is the body? The body has an environment. Like, where are you spending the most time? Like, where you're sleeping is going to be a big part, right? And but like I really want to dive in also to like the finances and you know, like you said, the relationships and the health, like all of these things our home is literally a reflection of. So do you want to walk me through someone who's like, okay, I'm don't know what this feng shui stuff is, but I really want to try, like where do you recommend starting with someone's home as they begin this?
Yeah. So I think first of all, just to recognize that this is like a 5,000-year-old practice, and just knowing that it comes from the Chinese lineage, and essentially when we're working with feng shui, it is like acupuncture for your home. So we're working with the energy, and I just love everything that you said, because it's this newfound awareness of like, we can work on raising our vibration and frequency, but if our house doesn't change, it creates this like internal tug of war. And people are like, well, why is this? I'm doing all the things exactly. And as you said, you focus on your bedroom for if you're not feeling well. So in terms of feng shui, if someone like is coming into my world, it's like an iceberg. And at the very tip is, you know, things like keep your toilet seat down, you know, and you'll have heard it. It makes sense. It's hygienic. Like, you know, there's a lot of parts of feng shui that's very practical in terms of like keeping your toilet seat down, keep the toilet door closed. And, you know, that kind of like those little things you've heard, like they're not necessarily wrong, but are they going to change your financial situation? Probably not. Like, actually, no. So, but they are good practices to have. So when someone starts into my feng shui world, I often say to them to like start outside your house, like start from, it is an energy, so you can start to build a relationship with it, and start outside. So like literally stand outside your home, wherever it is, and just look around and be like, okay, well, like what's this path like, this entryway into my home? Like, what's the mouth like when I start to come in the front door? Is it clean? Is it organized? Does it feel welcoming? This is the mouth of your home. Your home, like, typically has a face. Like once you know this, you're going to just drive around going, oh, look, there's the eyes of the house, there's the mouth of the house. Like, you'll start to see houses like as people. And the eyes are like they see what's coming, they see where you're going. Like, so if the windows are dirty, it can literally mean that you're just feeling a bit like, I don't know what's going on, I'm like unclear. So this is like, I can't see what's coming. So there's a whole, like, everything is a mirror, as you said. So we start with the front door, get that front entrance, like welcoming. So this is where you're bringing the chi and the energy and prana into your home. It's like the food, it's our mouth. And anywhere around the house. So getting like anywhere around your house that you find friction points, there's going to be a mirroring friction point in your life. Okay. So when you open the front door, is it easy to open? If it's not, there's a resistance. There's some kind of like resistance to allowing it in, because it's kind of what's happening is it's like our houses are a mirror, but it's the unconsciousness. So it's like if you're not allowing yourself to receive, you're going to create these blocks in your house that are like, so this is like friction points of doors not working, doors not opening easily, handles on doors cannot present a grip on life or your grip on your finances. Burnt out light bulbs represent being burnt out, so it's like everything in your home has like a symbolism or an energy. So the invitation is to visit your house with fresh eyes. And the entrance, is the doorbell working? Are the lights working? Like, is it welcoming? And then when you come in, then wandering around, like, so this is kind of like high level, and it's a little bit like coming to if you went to the acupuncturist, acupuncture is not going to necessarily give you fashion advice, but they're going to give you good practical things like, are you doing some exercise? Are you doing some meditation? Are you doing this? And then they're going to do the needles. So when people come into my world, they'll send me the information about their house, and I will analyze and be like, okay, this is where we need to put the specific remedies in your house. So every house is totally unique. So on something like this, and a call like this, I can give you insights of like, the guidance, the good practices, but not necessarily the elements that are going to go into your every area of your house, because that's actually the specific to your house. It's like an astrology reading for your home to be like, oh, this is what's happening, and this is what we need to do to balance it. So on the bigger scale, it's like walking around your house with fresh eyes and be like, how have I unconsciously created this house? Like, because consciously, you may not put a picture, if you were calling in love, of a single woman in your bedroom, of like, oh, well, that's me. But unconsciously, wherever you are at in your life, it's going to be a mirror of it. So oftentimes with single women that they want to call in love, their house is covered in pictures of single women, of goddesses, of oracle cards, of like, it's so interesting, because you're like, oh, so it's like, what parts of me have I decorated this house? Like, I've had a client that found a cushion saying F off in the prosperity area. It's just like, oh, that's interesting, because you would never want to say that to money or to prosperity, So as you walk around your space, just start to look at it like, okay, is there areas of my home that in the cupboards that haven't been touched for a while? And, a lot of people will say, oh, I need to declutter my house before I feng shui. But I'm like, not necessarily. Like, it's a good thing, because if there is clogged energy in spaces that haven't been touched or moved in a while, it creates stagnancy. It's like, a little pool of water that goes all smelly and stinky. It's not healthy. Like, that's why we want to do exercise to move our bodies. It's the same in your house. So like any of those places that there's stagnancy, definitely move things, remove things, and change the energy around. Just be like, do I need this? And then move around with this. Is there anything broken, not working, chipped? And you may be people listening here being like, I can't afford to fix everything in my house. I can't afford to. But that like energy itself is going to repel you being able to replace it. So it's really important that you're moving around the house with just compassion and love and saying, okay, that's working. That could do an upgrade. Like, and we start to thinking about what would the upgrade look like? What would it feel like? So from that high level, it's like really moving around and be like, does the artwork align with what I want to call in my life? You know, does the are the things like, I love to say to people, you can use your home to be like a vision board for your future. Like, you know, use the walls as the vision board. You don't have to make a small board. You can like really get clear on, you know, places that you want to visit, things you want to do, how you want to spend time with your partner or your family. Like, get artwork that represents that in your home, and you will start to see that unfold because your house is listening and it's coming in. So you may as well consciously decorate it versus unconsciously, because the unconscious is going to keep repeating the patterns of your ancestors, your past, and keep you stuck in a loop.
Oh, this is so good. Yes, I couldn't agree more. So, you know, what's really funny is I actually recently had that happen where all of the light bulbs in my place went out. Like, it was like all at the same time. And I was like, oh, of course they did, because I am feeling so exhausted. And so I've always been kind of like tuned into that, or like, for example, like my shower head was leaking and I was like, where am I leaking energy? Where am I leaking energy? And as I like, it's so wild how like, as we fix and tune these things, it reflects back to us. So, okay. I have to share, because I'm sure other people listening have this scenario as well. I live in an apartment, and that has always been a little bit like challenging for me, of like, I have this kind of, I know like Feng Shui, like there's a workaround for everything, but I've always been very like, because I live in a studio. So I'm like, is this like conducive? Like, how do I make this work? And I mean, I feel like I've, you know, tried to, but I still have things I'm wanting to call in and shift and change. So what do you recommend for people who have smaller spaces or who live in apartments?
Yeah, oh my God. Well, apartments, like basically the feng shui of your home or your apartment or your caravan or your shed, like whatever it is that you live in, is within those four walls. So like whatever you are contracted, legal, that is it. And the propensity for you to feng shui it is like 100% the same. Like, I'm working on a literally a family who are living in a caravan right now, a static one, because they want to improve the energy of that to be able to buy their new house. You know, so it's pretty much the same as a studio, except there's four people in it.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And like the minute you say this, I'm just thinking of like one of my clients who was from several years ago. We worked on her studio apartment in Manhattan, tiny apartment, a studio. And of course, like we when you're in a studio or a smaller space, you just have to be way more intentional, like way more intentional. And in an apartment, in a house, in whatever it is, your house, just like your body, has different areas. So for example, in your body, you've got your heart that has a job, your lungs has a job, your kidneys, each of them has a job. And essentially in your apartment, every area of your home represents a different area of your life. And that's what we're working when it comes to the actual like elements that we put in place in people's homes in terms of the analysis. So, and that's typically, if I'm working with someone on a like in a studio or a smaller space, I would say, look, just don't worry about the intentional things, you know, the art, like the artwork, because it's going to be like it's more of a balance with that in terms of like, what's the right piece of art for me to put here in my bedroom, but more in my, where I sleep, this part where I'm sleeping. Like, you can still totally do it because you're like, what's my priority? Like, that's what we would be putting up on the walls of the studio. If there's like, what's my priority right now? But for example, with studios, it's very important to like have dedicated boundaries between things. So like even I'm just going back to the exact one that I worked on before. So for example, her workspace was her like also then transformed into, it was like her work office space and bedroom, but then it transformed, like she did an amazing swap every single night to turn it into her bedroom. And it was very clear, like she changed the quilt and the covers, and it was like tucked away. So like daytime, it was like, this is my work zone. And then nighttime, it completely changed. Like there was a complete shift in like this is my downtime. So packing away any of the work stuff. So it was like whether it was covered or packed away. So there was like a clear boundary of like, now is my sleep time and now is my work time. And having those clear boundaries is really important in one of those kind of spaces. Now, I actually lived in a studio in New York where I feng shuied myself, and I'm just remembering it now. And it was a friend of mine's apartment who had gone away for the summer, and we decided to live in New York. So we're like, yeah, let's go. And she was single, and I just walked around and I was like, oh, well, because of that and this and this and this. And I was there with my husband. So we were like, okay, we're going to have to like figure this out. So we were able to like do small things like intentionally. For example, she didn't have two bedside tables. So I just got a magazine with a picture of a bedside table and put it on the other side. I was like, I'm creating things into pairs, and I'm going to make this space balanced and harmonized for a relationship. So it has a space for both of us. So it doesn't feel like Ken is going to be, or one of us feels isolated. Because even just having pictures of the single people in pictures can feel how to describe it, can the other person or the relationship can feel very distant, or someone can be gone a lot. So it's that symbolism. So I would say I wouldn't overthink it. It's completely possible to feng shui it, and follow the same things, like be really intentional what it is that you want to call in, and set up clear boundaries between the different spaces, like the living space, the sleeping space, and the working space, and create those boundaries, so that you're able to switch off and be really dedicated to that. And that's kind of my main things for the smaller spaces.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And I do feel like I've done a really good job of making like this is where I do work, this is where I eat, this is where I relax, that's where I sleep, and they do all have very like certain spaces.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, so I know that there are different perspectives of feng shui. Some people,
Yes.
so which one do you practice, and do you do
Yeah.
the bagwas?
Mm-hmm. So there's different, perfect. There's different schools of feng shui, and the school that I practice is the classical flying stars school, which is using a bagua, but it's based on the compass. So a lot of people, especially when they brought like feng shui from the east to the west, it became kind of this watered down. There's a watered down kind of school where they're like, oh, just stand over there, and over that left corner is, I don't even know what the left corner is in it because I don't practice it. And we've had a lot of people come into our world who were doing it for years, and they're like, oh, I'm not really getting much success. And I'm like, yeah, because it's like McDonald's versus like a beautiful organic, Michelin star meal, it's totally different. So when you go to that generic level, you're only going to get generic or like, sporadic results, as opposed to, this is my specific house, these are the different areas, and these are the elements that need to go in to balance it. So that's the school I practice, is classical flying stars. And it will be just like, going to like me attempting to put needles in myself. Like, oh, I'll just put one there and there and there, like with feng shui, the same with feng shui. Like I wouldn't do that for myself. I'm not an acupuncturist. I'd want a professional to tell me what to do with my body. And it's the same with our house.
Yeah. So, okay. So then what is the difference? So because the way that I have been, I know that there's like, you do it based off of the compass or based off of the front door. So you do it based off of the compass is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, then that would change a lot for me, because I have just been doing it based off of my front door.
Yeah, and a lot of people have, and some people get great results with it. We had one instance where a lady who joined our program many years ago. It was really nice because it was like very early days in our Powerhouse program when she came in, and she said to me, she was like, oh, like my prosperity area is missing. Like the shape of buildings and the shape of the premises can also impact the energies. And she was like, oh, my prosperity area is missing. And I was like, oh, okay, no problem. Like we can still work on that. It's fine. So I was looking at the plans, and I was like, what's she talking about? It's not her prosperity area. It's her family area. So when I went back, I was like, here's your report. It's not your prosperity area. Like that must be something else. She's like, oh, well, this is the school I was using. I'm like, no, just this, for me, it's your family area. And she's like, well, that makes sense. And I was like, why? So when she moved into our apartment, or into this house, basically she bought it, she moved in, and had like a massive falling out with all her family, and hadn't spoken to them in 5 years. And once I gave her the recommendations to balance that area and to kind of create the space again energetically, her dad rang her like the next day after 5 years. And I was like, oh yeah. So for me, it was just like a major, like, I totally like see the shifts that we can make when we're using the compass readings, because every house is different. And like the compass school isn't just about the compass. It's about more about the if you've had your natal chart done with astrology. So when we do an analysis on someone's house, essentially we're taking the year the house was built, so the roof goes on. So essentially it's the energy that is captured, like it's the date of birth. We're using that and the compass to analyze people's homes, not just the compass. So that can be like, oh, okay, so I can find the areas, yes, but it's not just the compass. It's the kind of the bigger birth of the home.
That makes a lot of sense. So just to give people like a bit more clarity and context, is like we have these bagwas in our home. So do you want to just briefly touch on all of the bagwas that we have in our home?
I can do. I don't typically go as deep on calls like this with it, because it can really confuse people. So if there was like one or two areas that you wanted to focus on, I can dive deeper on those and talk to them. But like it can be really hard and like a lot when we go through all of the areas and you're like, this area, this area, this area, like we can just dive deeper into one or two, and really I can support that better than kind of going all out, because it can get like overwhelming, and just like pick the priorities maybe.
Yeah, well, let's start with the prosperity, because I think that that's a big one for a lot of people. So start with prosperity bagua.
Yes, sure. So the southeast area is the prosperity area of your home. And typically what I would say to people is, don't overthink this, okay? This is like general intentional feng shui, what we're doing right now. If I was looking at your house and mapping out your home to give you the specific remedy for every area, it's way more specific, and I would do that for you. But for the sake of this, like all of your phones, like all iPhones have a compass on them, or if you have an Android, you'll be able to download the app. So to find the southeast is just to stand steady somewhere in your house. Like it doesn't matter if you're inside, outside, at the front door, like wherever you stand, the southeast is going to be pointing in one certain direction. So it's just always going to stay the same. Southeast is always going to be the same area. So even you might know where north and south is, you might know where east and west is to be able to figure that out. But the southeast area is the prosperity area, and it's that general direction. It's not a corner. It may be by a window. It may be your toilet. It may be like at your kitchen. And where it is doesn't actually matter. So a lot of people will like panic and say to me, oh my God, it's my bathroom, or it's my kitchen, or like, what am I going to do? How do I fix my prosperity? It's the laundry. So when we think about this, it doesn't matter, because it's about the energy. It's not about what that area is, what's in that area. So what we're talking about is a higher level of feng shui, as opposed to just like, it's the laundry or it's the bathroom. Like obviously there's things we can do around that. I had a client who had just lost her job. She came to me. She's like, what am I going to do? My prosperity area is in my bathroom. I was like, look, we're going to put your remedies in anyways and balance your house. It's fine. You're going to get a job. We'll work on the career, all of that. But if your prosperity area is in your bathroom, get some nice, hot, fluffy, new 5-star bathroom towels. Like put some flowers in it. It'll make you feel better. Thinking like, oh, I love going into my bathroom. It feels really good. It feels abundant. So how can you do that with your space in terms of the different areas?
That's really good. Yeah, I was just looking mine up right now. Yeah, because mine's like my front door is east and my kitchen is south. So I have that whole kind of area of like my laundry, my closet, and a little bit of my kitchen. So as I'm like thinking about it now, I'm like, okay, well, I could probably like, maybe do some tidying up of like what's essential, like what I mean. And it's interesting because I've been feeling called to like, I don't even use that mug anymore. Like just get rid of it. Just get rid of it, and like only use the things that actually bring me joy. Like I think that that's a really big part of feng shui is only, I mean, they say that like in the Marie Kondo, like only keep what brings you joy, but that totally rings true for feng shui.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And like, just even thinking about that area, you know, you can spend some time just kind of standing in it. Like, you know, is there clothes in here that I don't wear anymore that, like, you know, I can make some space here. You could write some affirmations and intentions around abundance. You can like go through the closet, go through the kitchen area, clean it out. Like, just the awareness of that is important, you know. And what if your bin happens to be there? Just empty it regularly. You know, I don't get like too excited about this because I'm like, you know what, it is good for us to be conscious of the area. But ultimately, when we start to do like feng shui on a deeper level, it's the energetics. So as you stand in it, you're going to become more conscious. You're not going to keep it as cluttered. And if clutter does come, you're going to like just sort it a bit more. So you just become way more aware of your space, which is really, really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then what about the health? What about that, Rachel?
Okay. So the health is like smack bang in the middle of the middle of your home, and the middle of the apartment. So essentially, with feng shui, it's like a wheel. So all of the 9 areas, or the 8 areas, are on the outside, and then right in the middle is the health. And this is health, self-love, gratitude. And what I would say to most people is just to keep this area. Oh, my little dog is getting a bit excited outside. Sorry. So with the health area, I would say to you, just like keep this area as clear as possible. Keep this area as clear as possible. You know, if there's something in that space, you know, for example, if it's possible, and again, keeping clutter free is most important, but second of all would be, if there's something in that space that it's like, if there's a room there, like, make sure that it's not broken, make sure there's no chips, make sure that like there's maybe a picture that symbolizes like flourishing, or like a bowl of fruit, something that's healthy and vibrant and alive. You know, if it was where you had some books being stored, like make sure they're like healthy books and good one, you know, around like healthy cooking or healthy lifestyle, you know. So it could be like yoga books, whatever the things you'd like to be doing, like bring that into that space.
Okay. So like I'm thinking about since I live in a studio, and in the middle of my space, because and I always think that this is beautiful because I kind of have always thought about it as kind of like the heart of
Yes.
the body. And I have thriving plants that
Yeah.
I also have like a lot of my like spiritual, like I have some candles, but recently I was like, wait, I have to get rid of the candles that are like this much left. Like we need full candles. We need full
Yeah.
wax candles. And if they're like halfway or whatever, like use them.
Yeah.
But I also have like, I mean, I have like a wall and stuff too, but like an air purifier, and like some of these other types of things. But that's really great advice. So things that make you feel healthy. So, and really, I feel like what you're getting at is like with each of the areas in your home, like tune into that frequency, right? Of like, how do you want to feel with your money? How do you want to feel with your health? How do you want to feel with relationships?
Yeah.
Getting into that energy. And are there any like other, you've mentioned a few, but like tips and tricks of like things that you've seen give really big results for just doing something like really simple, like putting a crystal, like a picture or something like that you've seen?
Yeah. So we don't typically, well, when we work with our clients, we don't typically talk too much about crystals. And, you know, I just answered a podcast. I was just answering a question someone sent in for my podcast recently. And it was like, which crystal is the one for abundance? And I'm like, I'm not a crystal expert. And if you think a crystal is going to bring you loads of abundance, like, go for it. But it's not going to be a feng shui cure. But with me, like, but actually in some areas of our homes, we often will bring earth element, which is crystals. And that is one of the things that we would use in homes. But don't bring them in to be like, oh, Patricia, the feng shui expert said bring crystals in, let's go bring abundance, because it may not necessarily, it may stop it, because we're working with the cycles of how the elements interact with each other. So in terms of like things that I've seen make differences, like I would like clean your front door, like literally go out and wash your front door and like clean it off and put a nice welcome mat on it. I would say to people, like I've had people go out and clean their front door and had like came back in and looked at their computer and had a brand new client, like this is one client, like Tina, she was like, I literally went outside, cleaned my front door. I came in and I had a client message me saying, I want a full website build, like dream client, please. and just like, I'll pay in full. And she was like, oh, okay. Amazing. So that's like one example. The other one would be like, I had a client who was a copywriter, and she had this like giant cactus, like a massive cactus in her house. And she was like, it was really expensive. And I was like, it was really expensive, but whatever, it's repelling what you want to call in right now. And she was like, no. So I was like, look I'm not the feng shui police. I'm not going to come in and tell you to like get rid of your if you don't want to. Like, the other part for me is like, your house shouldn't look different, it should feel different. And people ask me like, what's the feng shui, a bad feng shui house look? And how do I know if my house is bad feng shui? And I'm like, well, how's your bank account? How's your relationships? How's your health? How's your career? Because that for me is bad feng shui. Like, it's in your life. What's happening in your life is a mirror. So she had the cactus, and eventually she was like, do you know what? She kind of looked and she's like, okay, I'm just getting rid of it. So she picked up the cactus, she walked out of the apartment, she went downstairs, she put it in the bin, like beside the big skip, because she's like, it was expensive, someone else might want it. And I was like, I don't know, it's kind of bad karma. She came back up and she had $4,000 new client sign. I was like, win. So like, it's like when you have the wrong things in places, it can be blocking it. And really the idea is bringing the right energies in to balance it. So it could be subtle things like the piece of art, you know, like pictures. You know, a lady, I was looking at her office one day and I was like, God, like, I kind of was like, I don't know what I'm going to do to her office because it's amazing. She's like this fabulous office. It was like a CEO office with like massive big wooden cabinets. It's stunning. And I'm looking at it going, I don't know what I'm going to say because it looks great, feng shui. And next one we're like looking, I was like, what's that painting on the wall? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, that was my ex-husband's. And I was like, okay, so something that didn't work out is on the wall, like basically a mirror of your like relationship didn't work out. I was like, do you want your business relationships to work? Do you want things to... She was like, yeah. And then when we also looked at it, the other flip side of that piece was it was a winter scene. And it was like snow and empty trees and no growth. I was like, this is not supporting you with your office. So like, get rid of it. And she was like, okay. And it was like that extra nudge, because most of the time I would look at art and I wouldn't say to people like, get rid of it. I'd be like, what does this represent? What does it represent to you? And what's the mirror of it? So like, for example, I had this amazing client in LA, and her apartment, she just realized after we'd like our first call, she was like, I got rid of all my furniture. And I was like, what? I never tell anyone to get rid of their furniture. But she said that she just sat there and she realized that like all this furniture she'd bought in a really dark place when she just split up from her husband. And it was just like, it just felt bad. And she's like, that's it, I'm going to renovate it. And she started putting the remedies in, and all of a sudden this like creative spark came out of her. And she's like, I have never felt so creative. So she started doing everything, redecorating, and she picked this kind of art deco theme for the apartment. And I was lucky enough I happened to be in LA when we were working with each other. So she was like, come visit. Like, I was like, okay, cool. So we get to her apartment, and I hadn't seen it since, like, I'd seen like intermittent between our sessions. And she's like, look at this piece of art. So it was like two planes, like these art deco ancient vintage planes. And so this is my new beginnings area. I want to propel forward. And I was like, because like if we walked into her apartment, we would have seen on the wall these planes, these images that looked and fitted in with the era of the art or of the furniture and the kind of like theme. But it meant like 100 times more to her. Like on the wall, she had this like horse, like she was so creative. She had this beautiful black stallion. And I was like, this is my career area. Stallions are my favorite animal in the world. And she's like, I'm going to charge ahead. So like everything was like so symbolic and connected to her. And it was just so amazing because as she kind of went through that journey, like she was in a deep, dark place when we started working together. And all like I got there and I was like, who is this woman? She like lost all this weight. She had all this beautiful art. It was just like opened up a whole new world for her. And this is what we see, because if we're in a dark place, our home is going to mirror that. And it was like, you know, there's a whole journey with like, you know, tapping into the energy of your home and then reconfiguring it to the new version of you. And as I said, like make it the vision board. So like the the things that I see with people, you know, subtle things like don't have anything under your bed. You know, you said very beginning, like if I've health things, I'd look at my bedroom because you spend a lot of time there. I'm like 100%, like clear things out from under the bed, make sure that your bedroom is like clean and clear. That if you want to improve your relationship, like bring a picture of yourself and your partner into your bedroom, you know. So there's like that idea of like really becoming so intentional and conscious about your environment, because ultimately what we are doing with feng shui is like when you see the yin and yang symbol, it is yin yang, dark night, heaven and earth. And in that symbol is everything, and everything about feng shui. Because what we want to do is bring harmony into our homes. So when we look out and sit in nature, like it is the ultimate perfect balance. It is divine alignment. The trees, the plants, the flowers, the water is divine alignment. And when we're working with feng shui, we're bringing the elements in to balance and harmonize each of the areas. So your home becomes into this energy of divine alignment, and you're tapping into that like center point of the Tao, and that's that moving force. So when we start like activating and bringing this flow into the home and into our homes, it starts bringing everybody into flow. So it's like the women who harmony and joy powerhouse, it's their kids that start doing better in their exams. It's their husbands the husbands' businesses that are take off, or the husbands that get promoted as well. You know, it's like we kind of forget that like the house is a living organism, and it's like everybody's in it benefits. So when you start to become conscious of your environment, you're actually becoming conscious of the life of everybody in your home.
So beautiful. Yeah, you said that so beautifully. And I think I've seen it time and time again. An example that always stuck with me from childhood was my parents. They built the house that I grew up in. We moved when I was like around 12, and they really wanted to feng shui this house. And so they built a water fixture in the prosperity area. And every single year, without fail, when they turned that on after the winter time, my dad would get like a huge job because he was an entrepreneur. And it was like clockwork. They just knew it would happen. And it was like, it's fast too, very fast.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because really everything is energy and everything. And I'm sure everyone's like so sick of me talking about it by now. I'm always like, if you want to reconnect with your truth and yourself, go to nature, because you will see everything, the divinity, the perfection, the God source universe essence in its perfection. And you are that, like that's within you. So how can we bring that harmony and peace into our home? So I love that you're sharing about all of this. Okay, my last question for you. Because it's like it's in the back of my head. So what about closets? What do we do for, like, do they need to be organized and perfect, or like because I think that that's a big thing. Like it's no one wants to look in their closet, right? I've done like, I try and keep mine as organized as possible, but like, I'm like now thinking like my prosperity is by my closet, that I'm like, you know, so what do you recommend for people?
I think with the closet, you know, for me, this is a really great question. I think it kind of goes back to like, what do we classify as clutter, life, or clutter or life, you know? So having a closet that's kind of a bit messy and that you're using and you're, you know, active with every day is fine. Like, I actually think that's fine. It's not bad feng shui, you know, if it's being used. You know, it's like I have, you know, ladies who come in and they're like, oh my God, my kids' playroom is like such a mess, or, you know, the house needs to be cleaned. And I'm like, yeah, the kids' playroom though, it's a bit like the closet. Like the kids are always playing with the stuff, like the energy is moving. You know, it's more in the closet where you're like, where's the stuff that hasn't been worn in a year, or the dress that is just like in the back that has a really terrible memory of some date you went on that was horrific, like that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like when it's like better to get rid of those kind of things as opposed to it being perfect. Like my closet is not perfect, and I used to be so messy, and I've got better. It's like you meet the person who's going to teach you what you need. Like my husband is like so organized and so neat. And like, I just laugh when I see our suitcases like packed. They're like completely different. And he's like, everything's so perfect. And I'm just not like that, but I've got a bit better. And like, I don't overthink. I don't even know what area my closet is, but I do make sure I go through it and I'm like rigid with like, am I keeping this? Am I not keeping it? Does it not fit me anymore? Is it going? Does that have a stain? And that kind of thing. Because if it does, you're probably never going to wear it. So then it's getting stagnant energy. But I wouldn't get like head up. It's more about those things that have been there for ages that you're like, oh, okay. And why am I holding on to this? Like, why am I holding on to that? In the closet, like the shoes that are way too high that you can't wear and they were expensive, that you wore once and they're like, I can't wear them again, but you're still leaving them there. Like, that for me is like, okay, let's get rid of that. But other than that, I would not get to, I'd be just like, yeah, organize it, keep it nice and tidy if you can, but it's not about perfection. And Feng Shui isn't about perfection. Like, if you even just look at the trees, like not all the leaves are the same or they're perfect, like they're just the way they are, the flowers come, some of the petals are different, so it's not about achieving perfection in a house. And I have done multi-million-dollar like mansions. Like there's one I did, I was like, oh my God, like it's people like, this is my dream house to live in. And the people who lived in it were having an absolute nightmare. Like it was, you would not wish the crap happening in their life on your worst enemy. Yet it was so beautiful and interior designed and the perfect art. But it was like all water, everything was blue. It was like everything was damp, cooling, depressing. Like everyone was depressed. Like it was a bad feng shui. So like it's not about perfection. That's what we're not trying to achieve. So with and feng shui is about balance, about harmony, and the bit of untidiness, like the dishes on the counter from the dinner, like that's fine, that's life, so, and life is always changing and flowing, so as long as it's a place that you're going to be moving and flowing with, it's totally fine.
That's such great, yes, that's such great just awareness and perspective, because I think sometimes people can get like trying to get into perfectionism and wanting to make it, but that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful. So, well, thank you so much for just sharing. You've had so much wisdom. So if people are curious, they want to start feng shuiing and doing their home, where would you recommend people can like get some resources to like perhaps see the bagwas, or
Yes.
like how can people start implementing this and perhaps even like connecting with you? I know you have an amazing program. Yeah, just share.
So the very first place I would say is come over to patricialohan.com, and I have a mini course, a feng shui mini course. And that goes through like what feng shui is, how to get started, some things to start doing around your house. And it's just a beautiful understanding of like way deeper of the energetics of feng shui that we touched on a lot here today. And even if you get started on some of the things we talked, it's going to be amazing. But to dive a little bit deeper and get started with my guidance, and that's the best place. So that's at patricialohan.com. And obviously I do have my Powerhouse signature program, which is beautiful because you get your personalized report. But just to get started, come into Feng Shui 101. We'd love to have you there and support you.
Great. And is that the best place to connect with you as well?
Yeah, so I'm there. That is, you can connect with me. I'm on Instagram. We also have a very active free Facebook group called the Powerhouse Lounge, which is super fun. I'm just after doing a couple of days there of just lives with actions and things to do. So you get that information when you come into 101 as well.
Fun. Amazing. Well, everyone go and connect with Patricia. And thank you so much for sharing all of this. I'm so excited. Come and share your feng shui results that you start getting.
Yes.
Patricia and we would love to hear it. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. And I just want everyone to be in divine alignment with themselves and their homes. So thank you so much. It's my pleasure.